The bridge at Remagen, the day Germany's fate was sealed. March 7, 1945. The hills above Remagen, Germany. Lieutenant Colonel Leonard Engemann lifted his binoculars, his hands trembling, not from fear but from shock. Through the midday haze, he saw what no Allied commander dared hope for. The bridge still stood. The Ludendorff Bridge, the last bridge. For 6 desperate months, German engineers had been blowing every crossing over the Rhine. Orders were absolute, leave nothing intact for the advancing Allies. Yet here it remained, its twin stone towers looming like medieval fortresses, its steel arches stretching across 300 meters of swirling water, the Rhine itself, Germany's last great natural defense. Beside him, Lieutenant Karl Timmermann muttered the thought that would enter history. "We have to take it right now, before they blow it to hell." What they could not know was that this single decision would trigger the fastest unraveling of German defenses since the war began. The capture of this bridge would not only shatter Hitler's Rhine strategy, but psychologically demolish the Wehrmacht's faith in its own doctrine. German officers would later recall the moment as the instant they knew, with cold certainty, that the war was lost. Why the Rhine mattered. The Rhine was no ordinary river. It was a fortress. 300 meters wide currents, swift enough to flip assault boats. Depths that could swallow vehicles, banks steep enough to trap infantry. For millennia, invaders had been stopped at its waters. Romans, French, and now Americans, all had faced the same barrier. In 1945, it was Hitler's last card. If the Rhine held, Germany might stall for weeks, maybe long enough to bargain with the Western Allies or shift divisions east to stem the Soviet tide. But one bridge, left standing, would change everything. The context of collapse. The months leading up to Remagen had bled Germany dry. Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's final gamble in the West, lost. 100,000 German casualties, 600 tanks destroyed, veteran panzer divisions gone forever. By March, 12 American divisions pressed toward the Rhine along a front from Holland to Switzerland. Against them, the German 15th Army, just 50,000 exhausted, ill-equipped men. The Ludendorff Bridge itself carried bitter irony. Built between 1916 and 1919 by Russian POWs, it was over-engineered to endure anything. Stone towers with firing positions. Steel trusses strong enough for loaded trains. Demolition chambers sealed with concrete by the French after WWII. Even Hitler's paranoia sabotaged his own defenses. After a premature explosion destroyed Cologne's Mülheim Bridge in 1944, he ordered demolition charges removed from all Rhine crossings, only to be reinstalled when the Allies were within 8 kilometers. Commanders were trapped in a nightmare. Blow a bridge too soon, face execution. Wait too long, face execution. The paralysis was total. The moment of destiny. At 1 p.m. on March 7th, Engemann's 9th Armored Division crested the hills above Remagen. Expecting rubble, they instead saw German vehicles still streaming across the bridge, civilians mingling at its approaches, and, most incredible of all, the structure intact, demolition charges dangling from its girders. The sight was surreal. Brigadier General William Hoge, Engemann's superior, arrived and understood instantly. "This isn't just a crossing, this is history. We take it now." At 3:15 p.m., the Americans attacked. The race for the bridge, Lieutenant Timmermann AS Infantry dashed forward as Pershing tanks blasted smoke and high explosive shells into German defenses. German machine guns raked the bridge from the eastern towers. Bullets screamed off steel trusses. Men fell. The rest kept moving. In the eastern tunnel, Major Hans Scheller, freshly arrived with only hours to prepare, faced the ultimate decision. The bridge was wired with nearly 3 tons of explosives. One turn of a key could end it. At 4 p.m., German engineers triggered the detonators. Nothing happened. Whether artillery had severed the wires or fate had intervened, the charges failed. Minutes later, an engineer lit a manual fuse. The explosion rocked the span. lifting it into the air before it crashed back onto its piers. Dust and smoke rolled over the river. When it cleared, the bridge was scarred, sagging, but still standing. Sergeant Alex Drabick of Toledo, Ohio, sprinted forward, becoming the first American to set foot on Germany's eastern bank of the Rhine since Napoleon. The impossible had happened. Aftermath: the collapse of a front. Within 24 hours, 8,000 American troops had crossed. German counterattacks came in waves: airstrikes, frogmen, rocket attacks, even V-2 missiles. Nothing worked. The psychological effect was devastating. Hitler flew into a rage, ordering firing squads for officers blamed for the loss. A flying court-martial executed commanders in forests near Remagen. It changed nothing. By March 17th, after withstanding artillery, bombs, and ceaseless traffic, the Ludendorff Bridge finally collapsed into the Rhine. 28 American engineers died in the fall, but by then it no longer mattered. 3 other bridges had already been built, and 6 Allied divisions were across. The Rhine, Germany's ancient shield, had been pierced. Why it mattered. The bridge saved months of fighting. It spared the Allies an estimated 35,000 casualties. It destroyed German hopes of holding the Rhine line. From Remagen, the Allies poured into central Germany. Within weeks, the Ruhr industrial heartland was surrounded, and the Reich crumbled. General Eisenhower later called it one of those rare moments in war with incalculable effects on future success. The race for Berlin had begun, not with a grand offensive, but with one overlooked bridge that refused to fall.